Arizona's education sales tax proposal, citizenship at work, or the wrong solution.
We cannot trust the legislature to adequately fund education. That's why, as volunteer parents, we spearheaded this effort. We are leading this effort to take this out of the politicians' hands. The public doesn't trust them. We don't trust them.
There's many things that are wrong with this bill, including that it raises taxes, it will hurt our economy, but I think what's worse about it is that it funds things other than education. These dollars should be going to the classroom and to teachers.
Tonight on Arizona Week, the heated argument over Proposition 204.
Production of Arizona Week is made possible in parts by a grant from the Stonewall Foundation and by the members of Arizona Public Media. Thank you for your continued support.
Once again, your moderator, Michael Chiha.
Everyone seems to agree that public education in Arizona needs more resources, applied more efficiently. Supporters of Proposition 204 say it will do just that. Opponents say otherwise. Before we get to their arguments, let's look at the proposition with the help of Mary Jo Pitzel, legislative reporter for the Arizona Republic. Describe briefly what Proposition 204 would do.
Brief is hard for 204, but essentially it asks voters to continue the 1-cent sales tax that expires next May. The money then from that permanent 1-cent sales tax would go to primarily education. There's some money in there for transportation infrastructure as well as some human service, social service programs.
And what are the proponents of it saying is that its main need?
Oh, the main need, they insist, and the whole reason for this is to fund education. They point to recent years when education budgets have indeed been cut almost 19% by the legislature's own estimate over the last 4 or 5 budget years. Now, those years coincide with some of the big deficits that the state had. But their point is that in this past year, when there was a modest surplus, the legislature showed no interest in coming back and putting more money into education. And that was the final straw for them. They said, look, we need to identify a permanent funding source for education that lawmakers cannot touch. So to do that, they make this off limits. They also say that the current funding levels, both for K-12, community colleges, universities, current funding levels are locked in, and future budgets from the legislature cannot go below that level.
That goes to what some of the opponents say are the big issues with it, that permanence and that handcuffing, if you will, of the legislature. Talk a little bit about that.
Very much, yeah. The whole idea of handcuffing the legislature, and this would, it would take away any kind of flexibility that the legislature would have to, for example, cut the education budget either, well, I don't know if they would just do it in flush years, but if they have another downturn, they would not be able to cut the education budgets, at least not below the levels that we have today. And they certainly couldn't touch any of the estimated $1 billion a year that this 1-cent tax would generate. That is called checkbook legislating. They don't like that. They think that we need to give that power. The power of controlling the budget does rest with our legislative branch. And again, the proponents say, but we can't trust you. You've done this to us over and over again. The other argument on permanence is that the 1-cent tax is permanent. It would be a permanent addition to the state's sales tax base, whereas the 1-cent tax that Governor Brewer championed was for 3 years, and it is due to expire and will expire at the end of May next year.
Back to the opponents' handcuffing of the legislature, they're even calling constitutional grounds on that regard, saying that the state constitution gives them authority that this legislation would take away. Do they have a leg to stand on with that argument?
That I'm not clear on, and that will probably take litigation. Prop 204 seeks to amend statutes, not to amend the state constitution. If this were a constitutional amendment, there would be no argument. Perhaps there is some kind of argument on that, and maybe we will see a legal battle queuing up if 204 indeed passes.
One other issue with the opponents is that 204 was put together by a coalition of special interests. Is that the case here?
204 came primarily from a group of parents, the Education Parent Network, I forget their correct title, and this sprang from a group of moms down in Tucson who showed up at the legislature a couple years ago initially they were just fit to be tied over the state school tuition organization tax credits and the fact that a lot of the money from that flows to one senator who has, Senator Yarborough, who has sponsored a lot of that legislation. Then they became big education advocates as they watched what was happening during the lean years when school budgets were cut. They are the prime movers of this. They did try to work over the last year with other education groups. Some have stayed on board, others have left. The special interest claim comes because the contractors have thrown in money to help put this thing on the ballot, and they also would benefit to the tune of about $100 million a year. Well, they wouldn't. Road projects, transportation projects would, which indirectly benefits them. But they were on a collision course. The education supporters, the contractors were both eyeing a ballot measure this fall, and this married the two proposals.
If Proposition 204 passes, what's the legislative session going to look like next year? Is it going to have an impact there?
Oh yeah, definitely. First, you'll hear a lot of complaining about how this ties their hands. Perhaps there'll be a legal challenge. One of the complaints that critics have is that there is not much accountability in it. I asked one of the opponents yesterday, I said, well, if 204 passes, can your accountability concerns be addressed? And he said, yeah, probably. There might be a way to do that. So we might see something like that happening in the legislature. And if it fails, the big question and the big thing to watch with the legislature is, will they and Governor Brewer step up and propose ways to fund a lot of these education reforms that they have approved but that have no money attached to them? That's one of the reasons that we have Prop 204 is to pay for all these ed reforms.
The key protagonists in the Proposition 204 campaign sat down with me this week. Ms. Pedersen, make the case for Proposition 204. Why is it needed?
Prop 204 is something very positive that Arizona voters can do, not just for school children, but also for the state's economy. It renews the 1 cent that is already in place, but better directs those funds so that they help children in their classrooms and helps the state's economy. Right now, Arizona led the nation in the depth of cuts to K-12 education at almost 22%. Before the cuts, we were already 50th in the nation. Our children's classrooms saw devastating cuts, and the economy is not going to do well in Arizona unless we improve our education system. That's why the leaders, the CEO leaders of Arizona, are behind Prop 204, because we need to draw good jobs to Arizona, and the only way we're going to be able to do that is ensuring that we have a permanent, dedicated revenue source for education, and the key here, a revenue source that the legislature can't cut and they can't touch. We're in essence going to take politics out of education funding and ensure that moving forward we can head down the path to prosperity by ensuring that our children have what they need in their classrooms and our economy has a well-funded and adequately funded education system so we can draw and keep the good jobs that we need in Arizona.
And Mr. Ducey, why do you say that Prop 204 is bad for Arizona?
Well, Prop 204 is bad for Arizona. It's important to know exactly what Proposition 204 is. It's a $1 billion permanent sales tax increase. It would make the state of Arizona the second highest sales tax state in the country. That would be devastating to our economy. It's sold as a quality jobs and education bill, yet $0 would go to the classrooms, and there's no accountability and no real reform in this bill. That's why the Arizona Chamber of Commerce, the Phoenix Chamber of Commerce, and the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce oppose Proposition 204. In addition to that, Dr. Craig Barrett, who's the former chairman and chief executive officer of Intel, whose company has invested hundreds of millions of dollars in infrastructure in the state. He's also the president of the Basis School System, one of the finest school systems in the country, is outspokenly opposed to Proposition 204. There's many things that are wrong with this bill, including that it raises taxes, it will hurt our economy, but I think what's worse about it is that it funds things other than education. These dollars should be going to the classroom and to teachers. That's how we could truly reform education. Prop 204 doesn't do that, and that's why I'm standing up against it.
Ms. Pedersen, no money for the classroom out of this proposition?
It's just a completely false claim, and unfortunately, Mr. Ducey just gave you a litany of misinformation. It's been very difficult as a volunteer parent to have to counter the politicians that are willing to really try and trick the public. Of course money is going to the classroom. As a volunteer parent who is spearheading this effort and worked very closely on the drafting of this for the past 18 months, I can assure you that these dollars will flow to benefit our children, their teachers, and their classrooms. This comes at a really critical time in education in Arizona. Our state has adopted a series of new reforms that are coming online in the next 2 years, but the legislature refuses to adequately fund them. We have a state surplus in Arizona, and the governor asked for a modest funding increase this past session. The legislature's response initially was zero. Nothing for education in Arizona, nothing. Eventually they settled on a compromise, a very low number that didn't even include money for textbooks. What we hear from other states, Kansas, Vermont, is that their children have things like iPads in their classrooms. They are up to speed when it comes to modernizing education. In Arizona, at my son's elementary school, we had to stand outside of Safeway and ask people, shoppers, for receipts so that we could fund paper, pencils, and pens at his school. Arizona, remember, before the cuts began, was 50th in the nation in per pupil funding. We cannot trust the legislature to adequately fund education. That's why, as volunteer parents, we spearheaded this effort. We are leading this effort to take this out of the politicians' hands. The public doesn't trust them. We don't trust them. Arizona voters are going to have to look out for our state because the legislature just won't do it. Those are the facts.
Mr. Ducey, is funding for education in Arizona adequate at the current levels?
I think this discussion about funding in education is a worthwhile discussion, and I do share Ann-Eve's concern that we want improvement in our public schools. And she keeps calling me a politician. We get to see each other several times a week, but I'm new to this. 2 years ago, I was in the private sector running a business. I got involved at our state level because I was concerned about what was going on in our budget. We were broke as a state. We were literally negative in our operating account. Our financial circumstances have changed. I encourage people to read the bill for themselves. It's a 15-page, single-spaced bill to raise your taxes $1 billion a year annually, and it's permanent and it's unchangeable. And Ann-Eve, you can say what you want about the legislature, but at least they're accountable to the voters every 2 years. I love how Ann-Eve keeps calling me a politician through this, even though I'm new to it. I think somebody's got to be accountable for the language that's in this bill, because there's some pretty good politics in this bill. There was $100 million sprinkled out to the road contractors so that they would pay for the signatures so that this could get on the ballot and be sold as an education bill. I think that money would be better served going to the teachers or into the classroom rather than going to road contractors. This is a special interest bill written by special interest to pay off special interest. It won't improve the outcomes in education and it will hurt our state economically.
Is the state funding education adequately now, Mr. Ducey?
Our state has, I can only answer that with numbers. Our state, in terms of county taxes, state taxes, and federal taxes, will spend $9.6 billion on K-12 education. That's to educate just over 1 million school children. That's $9,200 per pupil. So when I hear moms like Ann-Eve tell me that in the classroom there aren't erasers or there aren't paper and pencils, I say that's because the funding formulas that we have today don't work. And they won't work. And Proposition 204 does nothing to fix them. So when you have $9,200 per pupil, I think we have a good beginning. And I'd love to have this discussion on how we can improve outcomes in the classroom. But education is the only industry in the world that measures itself by how much it spends. And if the amount of spending was the measure of success in education, Washington, D.C., Detroit, Michigan, Chicago, Illinois, and Baltimore, Maryland would be the finest K-12 systems in the world. But they're not. They're among the worst. We need to talk about how we get this money to the teachers, to the classrooms, and to committed principals and change the outcomes. Prop 204 would put billions of dollars into the same failed formulas, make our bureaucracy bigger, enlarge our administration, and not $1 goes to teachers or classrooms. And again, I encourage people to read it for themselves. I can guarantee them that $100 million every year goes to road contractors, and not $1 is mandated to the classroom in this bill.
Not mandated, Ms. Pedersen, but will it go to the classroom?
Of course it will. And if you actually take the time to read this, what you'll see is that the dollars flow directly to the State Department of Education, and they distribute them the way that dollars are distributed now, which go to the classroom. Mr. Ducey may call himself a novice politician, but he apparently has learned from the masters at the art of misinformation. Again, politicians like Mr. Ducey, who is an apologist for the legislature, want to trick the public into thinking that the status quo is okay. The status quo is not okay. It's not okay for our children. It's not okay for our state's economy. When I have traveled the state of Arizona, I can tell you what I have heard from chambers of commerce all over the state of Arizona. What they see is a direct link between the quality of education and the businesses that are willing to come to the state of Arizona. We had Google try and set up shop in downtown Phoenix. They had to close their doors because they could not find a qualified workforce in the state of Arizona. The business leaders of the state, and I'm talking about the CEO organizations, so these are the men and women who lead the companies who are our state's largest employers. They strongly back Prop 204. And they understand that if we want to keep good companies in the state of Arizona, if we want to recruit good new companies to the state of Arizona, we have to adequately fund education. You'll notice that Mr. Ducey didn't answer your question because he can't. Of course we're not adequately funding education in Arizona, and it's the fault of the politicians who put their own ideology, their own special interests, and the lobbyists who want to direct our state tax dollars for their pet projects. That's who controls the state capitol. And Mr. Ducey is going to be their chief apologist. I am telling you, as a volunteer parent, what we have seen, what we have had to come up against, the massive misinformation campaign coming from the Capitol has been incredible. Children are not a special interest group.
Mr. Ducey, what would be an adequate level of public education funding from your perspective?
Well, instead of talking about numbers, I want to talk about outcomes. In terms of the outcomes in the classroom, what we're talking about is putting an additional $1 billion in the classroom into the same formulas that have failed. And the signatures that Ann-Eve likes to talk about were purchased by the road contractors so they can be paid $100 million in special interest in this bill. This is a pork bill. Now, what I'd like to talk about is reforming education. And when she talks about my stance on Prop 100, I was not even in elective office. The governor pushed through Proposition 100 to fill the hole that was then the state budget. Our circumstances have changed dramatically. Just 2 years ago, we were negative $730 million in the state's operating account. We had a $3 billion hole in our budget. Today, our budget is balanced, and I left the state treasurer's office this morning with over $1 billion cash in the bank. So the point I want to make is if we need additional funding for education, let's take it from the money that we already have. Let's not raise taxes on hard-working Arizonans in a permanent bill that will be, in a sense, constitutional and unchangeable. And you know, Ann-Eve, you keep talking about me being an apologist for the legislature. I'm new to the state capitol. 2 years ago, I didn't know anyone down there. What I want to do is do the right thing financially for the state and do the right thing to improve education. The reason I'm standing up and opposing Prop 204 is because it does neither of those things, but it does pay off road contractors with $100 million that should be going to teachers.
Ms. Pedersen, respond to that. Special interests at work here?
Again, children are not a special interest.
Road contractors.
Having safe roads and roads that can adequately and safely transport goods and people is in the public interest. It is not part of a special interest. If you want to know who the true pigs at the trough are, I suggest that you look at the special interest lobbyists who are fighting this so strenuously. They do not want to give up control. This is all about control. The legislature, which is anti-education, and the special interest lobbyists want to retain control so they have power over how our hard-earned tax dollars are spent. Mr. Ducey talks about a surplus. Why do we have a surplus? Because Prop 100 is in place right now. Okay, that has brought in almost $1 billion. Yes, the size of the surplus. We voted on that thinking it was going to go to education. It didn't prevent the cuts to education. What we did in the quote-unquote 15-page document is we put up firewalls so that that can never happen again. When we go to voters this time with something drafted by parents, not politicians, this money will directly benefit our schools. And that's the reason why it's 15 pages long. The legislature is kicking and screaming about this. They've sent Mr. Ducey as their apologist because they know that it's bulletproof. They know that when we pass this, they are not going to be able to touch those dollars, and this time they're going to directly benefit our kids. When Prop 100 expires and that money is depleted from the general fund, the quote-unquote surplus that we're talking about is not going to be there. And what's going to happen to our schools then? We know that this legislature is not committed to education. As a parent, we begged and pleaded with them, parents across the state, grandparents, education supporters, business leaders, not to devastate our schools. They turned a deaf ear to that. They cannot be trusted. The people who will be administering these funds are elected. They are our local school board members, and they do answer to the public. When these dollars flow from the Department of Education, they will flow to our local school boards and to our local charter school boards. And those people will be making decisions that will improve education. When we talk about the reforms, we also put into place an accountability database system. It is #1 on the list of Governor Brewer's education reform items. Guess what? Legislature won't fund it. We're going to fund it so we can adequately track student, teacher, principal, school, district performance adequately for the first time. We're also tying dollars for the first time directly to performance, and a percentage of the funds, 12% of the K-12 dollars, will not be released unless the state is improving system-wide on measurements, again, linked to areas we need to improve according to Governor Brewer: increasing graduation rates, reducing dropout rates, ensuring that more third graders are reading at grade level, and improving our scores on tests like the ACT and the SAT.
Mr. Ducey, you mentioned educational reform, and in fact, the supporters of Prop 204, as you just heard from Ms. Pedersen, say that components of it would fund some of the reform issues on the table with Governor Brewer. For example, the performance database, teacher training, school accountability. Is that not a part of the reform system?
I really encourage people to get the facts and to read the bill for themselves. And I appreciate Ann-Eve's ability to talk about all the wonderful things that can happen in education, but won't happen with Proposition 204. This bill was paid for by special interests. The people that are stepping out to stop this are people that don't want to see a bad tax, bad policy, and no education reform. It is the government unions and the road contractors, and the thing that's being lost here is no one wants to talk about the $100 million annually and permanently that go to road contractors. We have gas taxes, we have HERF taxes, highway user revenue fund taxes that already go to road contractors. This is an additional $100 million. That's where the 300,000 signatures came from. And when Ann-Eve keeps talking about the legislature and all these people we can't trust, I just want to say that these are the people that were elected by the citizens of Arizona. And I believe in our representative republic system. What Ann-Eve wants to do with Proposition 204 is what has bankrupted the state of California. California today has a $17 billion deficit in this fiscal year. Think about that. We were worse off than them 3 years ago. Today, our budget is balanced. They have tens of billions of dollars in not being able to pay their bills. It's because their laws are littered with ideas like Proposition 204. If we want to change things in Arizona and you don't like what's going on at the legislature, then vote your legislator out and get someone who wants to reform education. But we can't do something that would be permanent, annual, and forever and goes to road contractors instead of to teachers. I mean, it's as simple as that.
$100 million to road contractors.
Every year.
80%, which would be $800 million to education.
$800 million into the same failed formulas. It will make for a bigger bureaucracy. It'll be soaked up in administration and overhead. And like I said, not $1 is mandated to a classroom or to a teacher in this bill. They mandated $100 million to road contractors. It's on page 10, line number 9. Try to find a line where $1 is mandated to a teacher. It isn't in Proposition 204 because it's not an education reform bill.
Oh, it's
Ms.
so
Pedersen?
sad. Someone has not read the bill clearly.
I've read the bill.
It's really sad.
I've read the bill,
If
Andy,
you read
several
it
times.
closely, you see that money directly goes to benefit our classrooms, our children, our schools, our teachers.
What's the single most important aspect of this issue that people should focus on before they decide how to vote?
What we are doing with Prop 204 is we're taking politics and politicians out of education funding because it is so critical to our state's school children and to our state's economy. If we don't do this, we know what's going to happen next. Legislators will continue to cut education funding. They will not make the commitment that Arizona voters are desperate for our state to make. Arizonans need high-quality schools. We need high-quality jobs. If we leave it up to the politicians who created this mess to begin with, rest assured they are not going to fix the problem. Arizona voters can fix the problem. With Prop 100, your taxes are not going to go up. They stay exactly the same. But we have put in protections this time so that this money will actually truly benefit education, truly benefit the state's economy.
Mr. Ducey, last word. Single most important aspect of this issue that the voter should focus on before making a decision.
Sure. This is the exact kind of plan that has bankrupted the state of California. People need to know what Proposition 204 is. It was paid for by special interests. The road contractors and the government unions funded this bill, and those are the ones that will be paid back. It's a $1 billion permanent sales tax increase on the citizens of Arizona. It'll give us the second highest sales tax rate in the country, and not $1 goes to the classroom. Why would the Tucson Hispanic Chamber of Commerce oppose Proposition 204 if it did anything to improve education? Craig Barrett's against it. The other chambers are against it. The highest profile and education reformers in the state are against Proposition 204. I encourage people to just say no to the second highest sales tax in the country, especially because this money doesn't go to teachers. It goes to road contractors and special interests.
A longer version of this interview is on our website, azweek.com. There you'll also find more information on Proposition 204. That's our program for Friday, October 12th, 2012. Next week, Proposition 115, the proposal to change how state judges are chosen. For Arizona Week, I'm Michael Chihak.
Production of Arizona Week is made possible in parts by a grant from the Stonewall Foundation and by the members of Arizona Public Media. Thank you for your continued support.